This is the Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate. We're at 8:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Our friend Stetson, he pulled up into the parking lot. He popped open the trunk. He said, boys, it's coach rankings week. But before we get to discussing our coach rankings ballot ahead of CBS Sports coach rankings coming out on Wednesday and Thursday, he had another coaching question that I think would be a fun way for us to get started before we jump into the headlines. Stetson asked, what do you guys think is the single most brilliant coaching move you've seen in your life? Dan Lanning's penalty usage against Ohio State this year, Nick Saban's onside kick in the national championship game against Clemson come to mind. And Stetson, I am not going to be an ageist here, but judging by the profile, I guess that's the end of when you said lifetime, right? Looks like you're on the younger side of our demographic, and I appreciate you. Listen, we do a wide range, and I'm glad to see that. So what do we think, boys?
That's a tough question to answer off the top of the dome.
Well, I think the top of the dome answer is one thing. How about this? He mentioned Nick Saban's onside kick. That would be one that comes to mind. How about Nick Saban going to Tua?
Yeah.
Break glass in case of emergency. It's 13-0 at halftime of the national daggum championship game. Your offense can't move the ball worth a lick. And you're like, okay. And it wasn't just going to Tua. But if I remember correctly, like Jonah Williams had gone out, so Alex Leatherwood comes in. Your running backs have been a little bit banged up all year. Our friend Damian Harris, I remember, had been kind of dealing with some soft tissue injuries. If it wasn't that season, I know at some point. But Najee Harris comes in. All of a sudden, you look up and it's Jerry Jeudy is in the game, and you look up on the game-winning play, it's freshman Devontae Smith. So Nick Saban and that offensive staff deciding to go with a full freshman spark at the very end of a long and grueling season against Georgia in the national championship game. I'll throw that one in there for at least for consideration.
That's a really good one. Some good ones from the chat. The Mike Leach fake script.
Yeah, when he was offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, he drops the fake first 15 plays for the Texas staffer to pick up and lights them up for like 3 touchdowns of 40-plus yards in the first quarter or something bananas.
Exactly. Sorry about that. Mute these notifications. I thought like Belichick's defensive game plan to basically like grab Marshall Faulk like every time they release him in a route of the backfield and just dare him to call it every time. Like, I mean, seriously, it's basically just like we'll do this. They won't call defensive holding every time. Almost anything that somebody did that led to a change in a rule is probably pretty genius. So
Dan Lanning's
penalty.
Brett Bielema's T symbol.
Brett Bielema's T symbol too.
Right.
Yeah.
The Patriots, the Patriots deciding to hold the Colts like crazy in that one playoff game. Shoot, there's probably some other ones that led to a change in a rule.
I mean, Boise State, Chris Peterson showing up in the tailgate.
The Statue of Liberty stuff. Yeah.
DeBoer's call of the reverse against Oregon State is still like really ballsy.
Yeah.
And it was like nobody would think to call that there.
Was that the game where the offense was struck? Like Oregon, was that the 14-9? There were a couple of games.
Yeah, they flip it to a Dunze. It's like 4th and whatever. It's pretty solid.
Kirby's timeout against Ohio State in the national semifinal from a few years ago. That great, the great matchup between future NFL quarterback C.J. Stroud and Stetson Bennett. Like that duel.
Where Harrison got knocked out.
Yes. Yeah. But remember, it was like Ohio State had lined up and Kirby sees it and he comes and he calls the timeout?
If you want ballsy calls, and this will go before our boy Stetson was alive, Tom Osborne in Nebraska going for 2 in the Orange Bowl.
Oh, like we're not going, like we're no ties here?
Yeah, because they could have kicked the extra point, gotten the tie, and they would have still been national champs. They went for 2, and they got it. I think the greatest coaching decision in college football history was probably Nick Saban just amassing the most talented players every single year.
You know what? Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's the most brilliant thing any coach can do.
And you know what? And everyone's been trying to do it ever since. No one has ever tried to acquire talent before Nick Saban, and all we've done since then is watch coaches try to acquire talent.
Speaking of Kirby with timeouts, Marcus Freeman getting them to rush out on the field with their fake
in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah,
I need to listen. There is a lot of time, but that game was, because obviously it had been delayed because of the tragedy in New Orleans. It was at the end of that long sort of grind of that first round in the quarterfinals. And I think and we had the live show was on the horizon. So that was very much top of mind. I might need to at some point this summer give that game a rewatch, because I don't remember it being a good game, but I think there were a lot of significant things that happened in that game, similar to what you were just saying. I remember Notre Dame kind of controlling, but not dominating necessarily. Where Georgia, Gunner always if it was like you just needed Gunner to get you one drive, get you one score, and they could climb back into it. But shout out to Al Golden's defense and the Fighting Irish for being able to mostly control that as I remember it. But I might need to give that one a refresh. We also did 4 podcasts in 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
At that time, it was
it all kind of blends together.
Yeah.
Bowden punt risk against Clemson. That's a good one. Urban Meyer, Tebow jump pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Snyder using JUCO players.
Yeah.
Pretty good coaching there.
Some of that's regional advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did those, Bud, you're great here. Did those, I do not have top of mind a good feel for the history of the JUCO circuit, but has that sort of like Kansas, Iowa, has that part of the country had good JUCO football programs for a long time, to where he had it? They the tree,
Garden City and all those programs around there.
The tree was producing fruit. He just had to, make it a priority to be able to go out and build the roster that way.
Exactly.
Mike Leach and Hal Mummy just saying, hey, what if we just run 4 verts every play?
Yeah. There we go. Love that. Stetson, we really appreciate you jumping in so early, getting the conversation going. As you see here on the headline, it is Coach Rankings Week. That means that we have, coming into this week, turned in our ballot ranking every single power conference coach. That is from number 1 all the way to number 68. And so today, here in just a little bit, we'll be discussing how we went through our ballots, the kind of mindset that we took, some of our most difficult calls. Then later in the week on CBSSports.com, Wednesday, you'll be able to find number 26 through 68. That's everybody outside of the top 25. On Thursday, you'll be able to see 1 through 25. So on Thursday's Cover 3 podcast, we will be reacting to the rankings as they were in the consensus. We had 9, 10. We had a lot of ballots turned in, and so there's going to be some disparity here that we will have a look at that all through the week. But first, jumping into a little bit of newsy type stuff. ACC spring meetings last week. We had a little bit of reaction here on the Cover 3 podcast. Our friend Brandon Marcello, who was there along with Richard Johnson. Brandon had a piece discussing that he continues to hear from multiple power conferences, and probably more specifically ones with the Big 12 and the ACC, conferences that are in the middle of the debates when it comes to a college football playoff change. If there is going to be any change to the college football playoff for the 2025 season, they need full unanimous votes. That means all of the FBS conferences and Notre Dame, all of the representatives all have to be on the same page. And we'd always looked at this as, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be interested in a straight seeding model where as early as 2025, your 1 through 12 is going to be the 1 through 12 as they are ranked by the committee. No more of the fast pass for conference champion number 3. No more of the fast pass for conference champion number 4. Now we are starting to get, again, from Brandon and others, the idea that there could be some positive momentum for getting this change through in 2025. Tom, is there any pushback here from the Cover 3 podcast? Do we stand with the potential unanimity?
No, keep going.
Now you messed me up.
Unanimity.
You may have said it correctly already. I'm not going to tell you. I want you to say it with confidence, whatever you say.
The unanimous vote. Do we stand? Do we stand with the unanimous vote? We want this for 2025.
Straight seating, yes.
Yeah.
I think this is a television product. I think if you want to create the best television product, straight seating is the way to get to it, because it creates the more intriguing matchups as you go along the bracket. And I think that we saw last year, like a lot of you get the second round games, like Arizona State made a game of it against Texas. Not going to take anything away from them. That was a really fun game. But, like the Boise State Penn State game was really not that exciting. Like it wasn't a blowout, but you never really felt at any point Boise State was really going to give them a chance. So I think that it serves for better television product, and I think it rewards your better teams in that your Oregons aren't facing Ohio State directly in the second round. They are getting easier matchups. They are getting the reward for having the best seasons by getting an easier matchup in the first round. So, yeah, I think straight seeding is the way to go, and hopefully they do it. I doubt they will, though, because this is a sport that never does the smart thing right away.
What's the incentive for all these leagues to do this? Just a promise that the Big Two won't screw them over in the future?
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe a little extra cash this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen. I think it does make for a better product. If you look at what the matchups would have been, they are better matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. I think it messed up 2 rounds of the tournament. I think it messed up the first round and it messed up the quarterfinals. I mean, obviously, the semifinals that we ended up getting were 4 of the best teams in the country. Right. So you could say all that ends well, all's well that ends well. But I would argue that if we want to create more competitive matchups and have it be more fair to the way that these teams perform during the regular season, you don't screw up 2 whole rounds of this, from competitiveness, from selling it. Like all of those things seem pretty straightforward for me when it comes to straight seeding.
Yeah, to be clarified for those who don't know off the top of their heads, if this had been straight seeding, the first round matchups would have been Notre Dame versus Clemson, Ohio State versus Arizona State, Tennessee versus SMU, and then Indiana versus Boise State. Those are 4 far more competitive games than what we typically got.
Yep. What I don't know, and this was a question from the tailgate as we're here live on youtube.com/cover3, would Notre Dame still be prevented from getting a bye if we went to a straight seeding model?
I don't know. I would hope not. I think if Notre Dame is a top 4 team and they meet the criteria you give them to be in the playoff, they should get a bye. Because if you're going straight seeding, the conference championships are only guaranteeing you a berth now. They're not guaranteeing you a bye.
I kind of think that they should be prevented from it, because the argument that was made to prevent them prior was that they don't play a 13th game, right? So their bye happens during championship weekend. So I would be in favor of them still not being eligible for it.
I don't think
it's fair. You only play 12 and then you also get a bye.
There is a compromise that is going to be part of a playoff format I'm working on of my own ideas that will be published at some point in the future.
Love that.
it's a scheduling requirement for Notre Dame where you force them to play a certain amount of Power 4 opponents every season.
This year they would
need. You're gonna like count the ACC, or are we talking like Big Two? Oh. I think like Notre Dame would be like, yeah, cool. The bottom half of the ACC.
Yeah, Jim Phillips came out and he was like, listen, this Notre Dame Clemson agreement's great, but those other games that are not on the schedule, those are extra games. They do not count for it. So, right. part of my, they
have to play the minimum amount, but also it's still a committee deciding where they're ranked. So if they're just playing Wake Forest every single week.
Oh, that's true. What is it that Tony Barnhart told us like probably 12 years ago, Tom? It's like at the highest levels of college football, they like for things to be, and then he paused and goes, flexible. You know, like selection committee allows, if it's a decision between number 4 and number 5, and one of these teams played in a conference championship game, maybe they lost, but the other one's Notre Dame. If they want to make that happen, they still could make that happen.
And shout out to Tony, who announced a couple weeks ago he'll be retiring after this upcoming season.
Shout out to
50th
Tony.
season covering the sport.
Mr. College Football, Iowa, 2011 ACC Media Days, I was terrified. And he, very much, he's walking around there, running the place, and he treated me like we were peers much more than I deserved. And he did that pretty much at every time that we worked together at CBS. So I've always appreciated that. He's the best.
Who were the coaches you were most scared of?
I think that I was just more intimidated by the whole knowing where to go, what to be. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at a media days, not getting lost. I wasn't intimidated by the coaches as much as making sure I was covering the event as best as I could. All right. Recruiting. This is that time. I mentioned when we were talking about Bill Belichick last week that when Bill Belichick is talking about how important the month of June is for recruiting, then I'm like, good. You've got your eyes on actually doing the things that you need to do to be a successful college football coach. 2026 class comes into focus, and USC, which we have praised for some of the off-field, changing your general manager, bringing in Chad Bowden, changing your strength and conditioning program. But some not so great recruiting news from the 26 class. They had been very highly ranked in the way too early kind of rankings as they're flowing through. They lose linebacker Xavier Griffin. This is one of the top linebackers in the class, but big deal, little deal, or the Trojans out of it for Griffin? How do we, that's the way that I approach a lot of these, here in May, June, July, is this something that can be repaired? Is this something that should draw up any red flags for the overall operation?
So Xavier Griffin's kid I've seen a couple times in person. Dude has crazy juice off the edge. I mean, really, really twitched up linebacker who I think will be somebody who blitzes a lot. There's a little Jihad Campbell in there. I think of him. Just really that's a different first step, which of course is why he's rated as highly as he is. I don't buy into the idea that USC is going to just recruit the Southeast amazingly just because they have Chad Bowden. Okay. I think that they are more organized now. He's probably getting their NIL in better shape. I think they're very smart to look in their own backyard and make sure that they don't lose people in their own backyard who they should be getting, especially because obviously you have a real beast to the north there in the West in Oregon. And also we know that the talent in California has been shrinking a ton. USC is not the job it once was because you don't really have, you still have right of first refusal quite often west of the Rockies, but the talent west of the Rockies is just not what it once was, especially in California. Now, Utah is more talented than it was because people are fleeing California because of the cost of living out in California.
Arizona too.
Right. They're going to Utah, they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to Texas. But you can track the blue chips out there and it's going one direction. And that's down. Right. Like high school football in California is not what it once was. It's a lot less talented. So I do think their recruiting is much better than it was. I think they are more organized, but we see this every year. They go into the Southeast. Cool. They get a splashy commitment from a stud in the Southeast. And for the most part, they don't keep him because culturally that's just different, man. It's not the same. And it takes a lot for a kid in the Southeast to be like, yeah, I'm going to go all the way out there. And how's my family going to see me play? Even if the school's like, hey, we'll fly you in a PJ, that's cool. It's still a long ass flight from Gainesville, Georgia to Los Angeles. Even if the money for your family to come see you play is not an option anymore, is that kid going to play any games that his family can drive to? Never. Right? It's USC's in California. He's playing in the Big Ten. So no, I don't think he'll go back to USC. He received a crystal ball to Alabama. That would make some sense. I know Florida State's trying to get in on that. I don't think that's going to happen, but anything is possible. Obviously, depends on how their season goes. That's a really big, that's a big one because he does have some rare twitch to his game. I don't want to be down on USC. I just don't buy them being a major player in the Southeast, because everybody in the Southeast got money, and they also had the distance factor and the culture factor.
But you are not pushing back against big picture. USC is moving in the right direction narratives, which is
everything I hear is that they're doing better. And I was very skeptical of them last summer and the prior summer, because what people would tell me is like, that's funny money. These offers, these kind of spring offers that they were giving out, they're not going to be there, come fall, like when it's time for pen to hit paper. This year, I don't think that's the case, based on nobody's told me that this year. So we'll see.
Okay. And then this one's going to be a big shock. All right. This one is going to like ripple through the college football world. Texas got a big commitment. Whoa. Steve Sarkisian getting a blue chip player. Wow. Yeah. Longhorns picking up a commitment from number 1 athlete, Jermaine Bishop. Bud, what do we know about Bishop?
2A kid, like more than 3,000 yards receiving over the last 2 seasons. Also like super productive as a DB, a bunch of picks, a bunch of tip passes and pass breakups. Kid's just twitchy, good feel for the game. I mean, he's a top 25 kid for us, and he is a legitimately like a really, really good player who I think is super high floor because of how versatile he is. I mean, he's 5'11", which is fine. I mean, Devontae Smith was not that much taller than that, and that's kind of the comp, I think. Although I don't think he's as good as Devontae was, but I stylistically, like Devontae could play 2 ways. In high school, you would see him playing some 7-on. He would play 2 ways. 5'11", 155 is very skinny like that. So I see a little bit of that. I know our Gabe Brooks comped him to Jordan Addison as a receiver. I mean, that also makes quite a bit of sense with the build there. But a nice get for Texas.
Carson in the tailgate. Your prediction: wide receiver, defensive back?
Probably receiver.
I mean, I am going to. I mean, yeah, I'm going to err on the side of if you have like truly freaky skill speed, then like throw him in Sark's offense, where everything is going to be about trying to put a player like that in space, get your whole defense going this way, and then all of a sudden get somebody like that going that way, because that's how you spring things loose in that RPO offense for sure.
He'll also be catching passes from our missing co-host's former co-host, the son of our missing co-host's former co-host.
Oh, that's right, Dia.
Yep.
Dia.
Our missing co-hosts,
Danny Kanell,
former co-host
Raja Bell,
Dia. Oh yeah, Dia's a great
Bell.
player.
Yeah.
All right. Any other recruiting stuff we should note before we head into the week? Any other stuff stick out? I mean, again, like I said,
for the channel, I do actually have some really good Xavier Griffin reps, so I'll put some of those up as a YouTube short. Let me see. We have Elite 11 out in Cali. That's that like second week in June. We have Feature 50 and Overtime 7-on-7, which is at the very end of June, as well as it's either Texas Relays or Texas 7-on-7. Something's going on in Texas. I'm not going to that one. Obviously, I'm going to drive over to Bradenton for Feature 50 at IMG. And some of our other guys are going to go down to Miami for the Overtime 7-on-7. So that'll be good. School camps also in June.
School camps, man, just like big for visits, big for commits. I mean, it's the time when you welcome them in, show them what you can do for them. Big time stuff on the recruiting trail for the 2026 cycle, and some of the early work on 27, all happening here over the course of the next several weeks in college football before we hit that dead period in July. Well, coming up on the other side, we got the coach rankings at CBS Sports coming up later in the week. We have already filled out our ballots. So before we react to the consensus rankings, let's run through our process, how we approached it, and some of the toughest decisions and more. Next.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale. Ronaldo! Wonderful goal.
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
back here on the Cover 3 podcast. It is Coach Rankings Week at CBS Sports. That means here on the Cover 3 podcast, we bring the discussion to you over at cbssports.com. You will get to read it Wednesday. The Power for Coach Rankings will be unveiled, number 68 through 26. That's everything outside the top 25. Top 25 coming at you on Thursday. On Thursday here on the Cover 3 podcast, we will be reacting to those consensus rankings. And so I'd like to begin before we get to our toughest calls, I'd like to begin with just sort of letting some folks in, because the conversation in the tailgate started with a little bit of this. Like I saw our friend Vols fan 98. How do you balance ranking coaches that compete for national titles at elite programs against coaches that consistently overperform expectations of a program? Some other comments around there. So let's start with process, Tom. This year, is it the same process? You just step up and just let it rip? Is it mathematical, vibesy? How do you make it work when you have to fill out this ballot, which I will say from the start is in 1 through 68, getting it all sorted is a very, very difficult process.
I think for me, I mean, there is no set guidelines for what I'm doing. Actually, no, there is one set guideline. If you've never coached as a head coach at like the Power 4 level or the college football level, you're starting at the bottom. I don't care who you are, what your name is. So
and this year is a great year for that to be an example when you've got a 6-time Super Bowl winning head coach who has not a lick when it comes to reps at the college level.
And that man was at the bottom of my rankings, not last, but very close to last. And so that's an easy starting point. And then I also feel like the top 10 is relatively easy, especially like the top 3. Like the top 3 this year in our rankings, spoiler alert, will be the same as the top 3 were last year. Crazy. And then but the top 10 is mostly self-explanatory. And then it's everything between is just kind of like I take a what have you done approach, but then there's a bit of a recency bias to it. And there's also like when I'm kind of close on a guy, it'll be like, well, which one would I hire right now for the
that is one way to approach this, that I know that some people, they take that as the mantra. You know, you're saying you're using a little bit more of a tiebreaker. I know some people come at this with like, if I am an AD making the hire right now, who would I hire?
Yeah. So I kind of grade them over different things. And then it's just, I mean, it's also like you might be great where you are, but how good would you be here? Like if you're like, again, Kirby's number 1 on my ballot, that's never going to change until he's taken down. But like Kirby at Georgia is Kirby, but would Kirby still be that good if he was at Kansas?
No.
And it's like, so exactly. So when it comes to those kind of
like if you're Kansas, would you rather have Leipold or Kirby?
I
would rather have Leipold because I know he can do it with no resources.
Yeah. So it's one of those, it's a tricky situation. There are no right answers. It's just, there is a lot of vibes based off it, but I do if you're able to win without resources, like Lance Leipold has been able to do, I do give you a lot more credit than I maybe give some other coaches.
I'm really kind of the same way. I do try to be like, who would I want right now? It doesn't mean I ignore the track record, but what you did 30 years ago, like that's why I had Mac Brown so low. Like I don't think he's I think he's a bottom 10 coach in 2024. But like more recent does matter quite a bit more. Now the problem, if you take the who would you hire approach, is who is the you? What type of program are you at? So you kind of have to balance that out. I do give some deference to winning at the highest level because obviously it's hard to win with no resources. It's also hard to win at a level where everybody has resources. So that there's no perfect way to do it, I guess.
Like Kirby has all the resources and a ton of advantages for being at Georgia, but you know who else has resources? The rest of the SEC.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably find myself giving, and I'm not going to say as a fault because no wrong answers. Unless we disagree with your ranking, then yeah, it's totally wrong. But I probably do give too much to the track record. And some of this is, if you stacked a lot of wins, there's a value to it. There's a decay rate on those wins and conference championships. And, in the case of Mac Brown, a national championship, how long ago was that? And, what have you done since then? But sometimes I do like to be able to point to stuff, right? To be able to say, and maybe take a little bit less of a, who would I hire? But as it's been mentioned in the tailgate, yeah, there's going to be a lot of Chipalytics here, and there's going to be a lot of vibes based analysis. Tom, I made a couple notes similar to what you were saying, but I don't know if you've got your ballot up. If you would agree with this, I thought my top 12. I felt good. I had to make some tough decisions within that top 12, but that was about where I started to feel comfortable that I had my first tier. I thought 13 to 31. This is my description of 13 through 31. A combination of buying stock early, a coach on the rise, and refusing to sell stock for coaches that are starting to maybe slip a little bit compared to their peers.
Like Stoops, Fickle, those guys still hanging on in the bottom of that top 30.
Let's see.
Stoops is hanging on at 27 for Chip.
Okay.
I don't see Fickle anywhere. Chip is out.
I've got Fickle at
I wasn't
39.
sure put Fickle in the 50s or not, because like the Cincinnati thing was not that long ago, but the staff he had around him is all at Notre Dame now. So
I've got Fickle at 39. So that would, that's kind of in that same area. There are coaches, I said, there are coaches in the 40s on my ballot that I like. Coaches that I'm like, that guy is a good coach, which means that we need to add the annual disclaimer. If you are even on the power conference coach rankings, it means you are a power conference coach and you're pretty good. Even being eligible.
You could suck and get a job.
Even being eligible for this ranking means that you've accomplished something. And then I said 50 through 68 were a bit easier. Then my bottom 15 plus or so, I could kick them all to the bottom, had a lot of trouble with the middle, but then the bottom 15 or so, I felt pretty good.
I agree with that. I just wish we could do ties, because there's a lot of these guys. Like Freeman, Lanning, James Franklin. Whether you're going like 5.67 or 7.65 or whatever, if you have great conviction that like one of these guys is way better than the other, I'd be really fascinated in an argument like that. Like I think they're all good. They all do some really nice things. They haven't actually won the big one yet. Obviously, Freeman made it. He was one of my
Freeman's closest.
He was my biggest. He was my he was a top 5 in terms of the largest jump for me.
All right, hold on. Did you say Franklin, Freeman, Lanning?
In whatever order you want.
Yeah, that's my 5, 6, 7.
And then like where do you throw Lance in? Where do you throw Whittingham in? You still have Brian Kelly top 10. I don't, but like just kind of knocking on the door there. Because I just feel like he's wasted 2 really good quarterbacks at LSU so far. It's
without spoiling where he ended up.
Yeah, that's number one goal is we're not going to spoil other people's ballots who's not on this show, and we're not going to spoil where they ended up. This is just us discussing it the way that no joke, guys. Like I'd finished turning in a really big assignment for CBS Sports, the like 100-day countdown, 100 storylines and talking points, and then after it was done, I mentally went into the hotel bar hanging out with the two of you. You're just like, okay, gonna crack a Modelo and just start debating coaches. You're like, this is like what's the defense? What's the back and forth? How am I going to stand by this? And I think that we're probably talking about the same sort of top 10 here.
Who picked up the tab in this fever dream?
Who picked up the tab in this fever dream? Tom picks up the tab.
Okay, cool. I will say Marcus Freeman was tied for 8th for the largest jump of any coach in our rankings this year.
The 8th. Oh, okay.
But he didn't have that much space to climb. That's part of it.
Does it include guys who were automatically ranked bottom 10 last year because they had not been FBS head coaches before?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay. Where does he rank in terms of jump among guys? Like if you exclude the guys who were like automatically bottom 10 because they had not been coaches before.
Mm-hmm. And there's There's one coach, the coach who climbed the highest, all right, climbed 18 spots higher than any other coach as far as total spots jumped.
I would say Dion
Kenny.
has got to be
Kenny.
Kenny Dillingham.
Yes. Took a
That's
very
fair.
large leap forward.
And I think that's a fair leap along the way. All right. So you mentioned the Franklin, Freeman, Lanning. You wish there were ties. Let's talk about those three right there. Franklin.
And probably Sark in that list too, right?
I've got Sark. I think Sark is.
I had DeBoer over Sark still. DeBoer to me has a better track record as a coach. He's won everywhere he's been. Sark has only won at Texas. DeBoer beat Sark the last time they played.
Fair.
I think DeBoer is a better coach than Sark is. I think Sark has more resources because Texas NIL is just off the charts. So until Sark starts winning more, I'm going to go DeBoer.
Okay.
I know obviously Sark had a better year last year, but I think want to go last 5 years, last 10 years, DeBoer laps him.
I think to me, I gave bonus points for not because instead of docking him for being at Texas with resources, I gave him bonus points for being the one that drug that ball over the line.
That's true.
All of those coaches who we all thought were pretty good coaches at the time that they were hired by Texas were not able to do what he was able to do, delivering the first conference championship since 2009, being able to get to the national semifinals 2 years in a row. To me, he did it the right way. He showed up, he started recruiting at a high level. He built up the lines of scrimmage, and he's just sort of, he had a blueprint. He had a plan. They've done it with levels. It seems sustainable. I'm impressed by it. I'm giving him some bonus points for that along the way. I mean, a lot of coaches tried. We don't even say Texas is back anymore.
It's a shame.
Right.
He ruined it the way that Dabo killed Clemson.
Thanks.
Franklin's got the longest track record of that trio. One of the most consistent, take it all the way back to winning the Big Ten in 2016. Something that a lot of people forget because Ohio State was picked for the playoff that year, but he's been winning at a high level for a long time. I've got him 5, Freeman 6, Lanning 7. Lanning, very small track record, but dadgummit, he's got no bad losses. I mean, he's got a bad loss against Oregon State if you want to look at the way the game went, but Jonathan Smith had a good Oregon State team that year.
I mean, I think his highs are basically just as good as Sark's, and his lows are not nearly as low.
Mm-hmm.
And they both have really high NIL. I mean, he's gone 10, 12, 13 wins.
Yeah. And Lanning gets that boost.
Texas
also
got punked at home in their big game this year by Georgia.
Lanning also gets the bonus of winning the Big Ten.
Yes.
Year one.
Yeah.
Hit the ground, 13-0. You went in and you beat Michigan. You outlasted Penn State. You beat Ohio State at home. I mean, you beat Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State on the way to the Big Ten title. So
fun little data point with a slight spoiler, but not one that I think I'd be shocked by. Of the coaches who finished in the top 8 in our poll, the range of Lanning's votes was the largest, and it was 5 spots, from low spot to high spot on a ballot, which kind of reflects our point about ranking the top 10, in that the range where these coaches appeared on the ballot in the top 8, only one was higher than 4, had a range higher than 4, and that was Lanning.
Yeah.
Everybody else was very small, pretty much dialed in right there at the top.
Yep.
Bud, where in your ballot, or you mentioned, I like the way that you presented it, especially with those 3 right there. Where in your ballot or any coach or group of coaches did you really spend some time trying to grind on it and figure out the answer?
At the top was pretty huge, for me. I mean, obviously move Kirby up to 2. I kept DeBoer over Sark by 1, so really didn't have a major change there. Just thinking kind of recent track record and not trying to just overweight just the most recent year, but obviously making some moves there. Had to figure out what to do with Whittingham and Lance Leipold. Those guys, I think, have awesome track records, pretty damn good recent track records, super good long-term track records. Both had quarterback issues this last year. Utah's had it for 2 now. So I did drop both of them some, obviously. And then it's like, okay, how far do you drop Brian Kelly after that? Like, you got to drop Kleiman a little bit, I think. That was tough for me. There's a huge, huge slog between basically like Jeff Brom at like 14, 15 range down to like kind of Lincoln Riley, Luke Fickell, Clark Lee, Dave Aranda range, just, yeah, it's kind of like just pick your flavor.
I've still got Brian Kelly top 10, and I still
Same.
have Brian Kelly top 10 a little bit with the way I introduced it, where I'm just going to point to the number of playoff appearances. I mean, this is a coach who has led he has gotten Notre Dame to the BCS national championship game. He's gotten Notre Dame to the college football playoff twice. Right? They're there in 18. They're there again in 20. Then you are correct. He's had, he had 2 years of Jaden Daniels and just a SEC runner-up showing, to go with it. But he's still been winning a lot of football games. We have seen LSU mismanaged in the last 20 years in a way that you can only go 6-6. Like, LSU does have a floor that is a little bit lower if you're like a straight up bad coach. And so I think that there's some games that he would certainly like back. The Texas A&M game last year, the Alabama game last year, but ultimately I'm still going to look at the whole body of work and see enough highs across the career. I'm still going to have him in the top 10.
Yeah. Another slight spoiler. Nobody who turned in a ballot had Brian Kelly lower than 10. So he was in the top 10 in every ballot that we received. But
I had him 11.
Yeah.
How many games did he lose last year to teams that lost 5+ games?
Too many.
3, 4?
Too many. I don't know how to dope. Too many.
I mean, they're losing to some bad teams now. It's not like they're losing to studs.
Yeah, but I mean, Stanford.
That was different though than what he did at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, he would never win the big one, but they would never lose to teams they shouldn't lose to.
I was thinking about this. We were talking about Jeff Brom and Marcus Freeman, and in the last 2 years, they both lost to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
So top coaches, also have some losses. You're like, huh? Okay. Nobody's perfect around
You
here.
are, Chip.
To the people in the chat say it's weird how all the good coaches are at the good schools. It should be, right? Like,
it's funny how the market works. The good schools want the good coaches.
Good. And how'd they get to be good schools? Is it resources or support? And do resources and support make it easier to attract good coaches? Yeah, that's typically the way this works right here. I've got a list of names before we hit a break real quick. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Coming up on the other side, we continue with our breakdown of our CBS Sports Coach Rankings ballots. All that and more next.
Get ready.
Wait a second. I thought we were going tubing.
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and Knuckles are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
And everyone loves it.
Every adventure,
Just try to keep up.
every face-off,
This ends now.
and every moment that will have you saying,
Where have you been? My entire life!
It's showtime.
all 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the entire Sonic universe are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. The CBS Sports Coach Rankings are coming out this week at cbssports.com. We contributed to that and giving you all of our thoughts here on the Cover 3 podcast. Everything outside the top 25, that'd be 26 through 68. That is going to be on Wednesday, cbssports.com. Then on Thursday, 1 through 25, Thursday's Cover 3 podcast, we will be reacting to the consensus rankings, overrated, underrated, and so much more. As I hope you enjoy this as much as we enjoy the discussion around the coach rankings. Tom, what?
Sorry, just to follow up before we transition. Every game that LSU lost last year was to a team that lost 5 or more games.
Did Texas A&M finish 8-5?
Yeah.
Playing to their
Alabama,
opponent.
USC, Florida.
No, look, okay.
Like, they don't have a single loss that LSU fans are okay with.
I know. I was about to have look, Bud, losing the season opener is what you signed up for when you hired Brian Kelly. Okay, you can't count that against them. That's just part of the package.
I just think he's past his prime, to be honest. I don't like the way their quarterback recruiting is going. Like, I mean, obviously, when you lose Underwood, I just, if I'm hiring today, there's definitely 10 coaches I want over him.
That's
at a big time program.
That's fine.
And do you know what else is super fair about that? We said variance of the coach rankings is a little bit small, but the variance of what LSU can be this year from people who are thinking like this is the year to people are like, yeah, they'll be fine. It's a big season for the Brian Kelly operation there at LSU. All right, Tom, same question for you. You can give us a turn of coaches, a number set in the rankings. Where were some spots where you had some difficulty?
I mean, I touched on it earlier. There were some spots where even in the top 10, there's a couple names that I had to leave out who I feel like could theoretically be top 10 coaches, but just coming off of like a bad season, or not even a bad season, but just like a disappointing season. Like Kalen DeBoer to me is a very, very defensible choice as a top 10 coach, but based on how things went at Alabama last year, I had him at 13, but I feel like I could easily have him back in the top 5 next year, depending on how things work at Alabama. Other than that, like, I was not the high man on Brett Bielema, which was a surprise. Chip had him at 12. So I'm not a homer. Just want to put that on the record.
Hey, and again,
where did you have him?
Well,
I had him at 16.
That's what I had.
Yeah.
I had Bielema at 12. And again, I'm going to point, thank goodness I was consistent about this in this fever dream. I'm going to give him all the credit. I'm going to give him the credit for the Big Ten titles. I'm going to look at that whole track record and say, like, you know what? That guy's been at multiple stops. He's shown like peaks at different times, the ability to adapt to the new era as well. Very impressed with Brett Bielema, as made obvious by having him at 12 on my ballot.
I think the most difficult choice for me personally was Willie Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love Willie, but just based on how things went at Houston in his 1 year as a quote unquote Power 4 coach, I couldn't really justify him ranking ahead of some guys. So he ended up at 46 for me, and that hurt. Like, I was like, oh God, just basing how everything came out. I was like, oh, I can't really put him ahead of Sonny Dykes. Sonny Dykes is coached in a damn title game. You know what I mean? So it's it was tough, but I do feel like he's a season away. Like if Houston has a good season, Willie will probably be in my top 20 again.
25. Yeah. Skyrocket 20 spots on the ballot.
Yeah. So there are spots like that. I had difficulties with PJ Fleck and Mark Stoops. Like, I always feel like Fleck is perennially underrated in our coach polls. I also feel like Stoops is the same, but I knocked Stoops down quite a bit this year compared to where I had him last year. And then other than that, I don't think I had anything that was truly like hand-wringy.
I hate where I finished. I mean, like K-State, I'm not going to hide behind this. I had Kleiman down at 32.
Yeah, I see that.
And I was like, oh.
You were the low man.
Oh.
Do you want to guess what the next lowest ranking for Chris Kleiman was on any ballot?
24.
Close, 22nd.
Yeah. I didn't. And it was just splitting ties. Like I had that big crew. To your point, Bud, about the ties, I just had this big clump of coaches. And I think it was a recency bias thing, and maybe it's my fault for not giving credit to the North Dakota State success, but that is at the FCS level, So I don't love where he finished with the number, because I believe if you ask me in a vacuum, is Chris Kleiman a top 25 coach? I'll probably say yes. But when I actually had to write out all 68 coaches from Kirby Smart to Frank Reich, apologies, number 68, I might call him number 68 all season. I mean, there was no your spot on the ballot than putting Frank Reich 68.
My thing is, like, I try not to do really big drops unless what happened makes me seriously like think you're done, or like I really, really misjudged you.
Showing up unprepared in Provo for one of the biggest games of the conference season.
They still went 9-4.
I know. But they lost to Houston too. I mean,
no, there's no doubt. You got to drop them. like guys who dropped more than 20 spots. Norvell, Fickle, Gundy, Venables, Pry.
Yeah, am I hanging
Guys who I
on?
think are like I misjudged him badly.
Am I hanging on with Gundy for too long, or am I about middle of the pack, Tom?
Where do you have? Oh, sorry.
36.
Gundy, you have him 36. Let's see, where you at, Mike? You are not the low man on Mike Gundy, not even close.
Okay.
He was
Yeah,
51
I had
on
him
one
50.
ballot, 49. Yeah, he was 51st on mine. I was the
Yeah.
low man on Gundy. I think I respect everything he's done in the past. I just think at this point the game's kind of passing him by.
I felt I am a little bit over my skis on Mike Elko. Maybe a little bit of saw it.
Because of what Manny did at Duke, it was like, okay, like the Duke season's not as special because Manny came and did the same thing.
No, I'm over my skis high on Elko.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got Elko up at 17.
Ooh, you are not the high man.
That's not crazy.
Being able to, and granted, if he gets Texas A&M across the finish line, I'll give him that Sark bump, right? We've seen so many coaches come through Texas A&M and not be able to like get them through to a conference championship game since, correct me if I'm wrong, 1998. We're talking about like 1998 Big 12 title is the last conference championship that Texas A&M has. If Mike Elko gets Texas A&M, old Texas 8-4, to an SEC championship, well, then we're talking about something that's really, really special. But I saw the disrepair. I saw the infighting within the Duke football program down the street, and the ability of him. And look, and credit to athletic director Nina King and sort of everybody who was able to get in lockstep. But I think his vision really helped that program get to a place where even if Manny had to come in and had some depth issues and some roster construction issues that he and his staff did a good job of addressing, I think that the program alignment and the sort of infrastructure and foundation that Elko was able to put in a very short time with the Blue Devils really, really impressed me. So I felt like I was buying a little bit of stock, taking a little chance, put my name on the line for him a little bit.
Like that.
What about
Who
Deshaun
are y'all's biggest drops who I didn't name?
That I didn't name already?
I just named 5 big drops, right?
Fickle was my biggest drop.
Yeah. Norvell, Fickle, Gundy, Venables, Pry. I thought were.
Yeah, there's just such a high floor for some of the big adjustments. You know, like I don't know if I took somebody from the 30s and dropped them down into the 50s.
I did with Gundy. I had Fickle too high last year.
I bet if you took me back to, let's see, what year? If you took me back to the 2020 coach rankings and then fast forwarded to Chip, you've got Scott Satterfield at 62. I bet that adjustment would be large. You know, like if after his first year at Louisville, what he had done in year one and sort of the way we were feeling about him, the fact that I've got him all the way down here in the hot seat zone with Tony Elliott and Brent Pry and Sam Pittman.
Actually, I was wrong. I had one coach that had a larger fall than Fickle.
On your personal ballot?
Yeah, Norvell.
Yeah, that's fair.
I remember I was getting yelled at by all the FSU fans in the chat for not having him in my top 10 last year.
Yeah, I misjudged his floor. I thought he had a real limited ceiling because the recruiting, just is very Dan Mullen-ish. But he'd always had like good culture and, teams played hard and his team quit on him last year. So, I mean,
that's part of coaching. You got to be able to like have that team bought in.
Yeah. Well, right. Like that's why you got to drop him that much.
I got him. I might have had, I've got him at 30 on my ballot. I felt about right.
Yeah. I think that's about fair.
Yep.
Like him, Sonny Dykes, Lincoln Riley, Kirk Ferentz, around there.
Ferentz is a tough one. What do you?
I bumped him up 7 spots because he fired his son and they used the transfer portal on quarterback. Like just some modern things. I mean, no, seriously. Like I think that's worth
that's right.
adapting.
Yeah.
Like Dabo went back up a little bit for me.
I still had Kirk in my top 20.
Lincoln Jackson wants to give Bud his flowers. Lincoln Riley, a controversial ranking from Bud Elliott last year. Jackson wants to say Bud was probably right on that last year.
I didn't move him any spots. He was 30 last year and he's 30 this year.
He is not in our top 10 this year, but he is still in our top 25.
I still have him inside the top 15.
You might not be alone in that. And the
How
lowest
far
he
up
appeared,
sorry, go ahead.
the lowest he appeared on any ballots that were turned in was 33rd. There was
All
also
right,
32nd.
I was going to turn my ballot in. I really was. But we had the whole StreamYard explosion
That's right.
on Wednesday when I was
Mhm.
trying to get out of town for a guy's trip. So I really just had to handle that like a lot of the day and figuring out. I'm not going to get into all the details, but that took a little while. So
I'm just saying, if you don't like the rankings when we put them out this week, it's
Blame
because Bud
Bud.
didn't turn his ballot in. Had Bud put his ballot in, that coach you're pissed about would have been exactly where he was supposed to be.
when the infographic comes out, we need to add to the caption #blame Bud.
oh, do you know which one I really hate?
What?
I had Fleck at 41, and that's not a big enough jump, I think.
Yeah, see that's I
That's a
feel
bad
like
one by me.
every single year I feel like Fleck is the one that nobody knows how to rank.
I got him at 28 on my ballot, and when I was talking about that sort of transitive spot where I'm buying stock or I'm selling stock, he was the one hold where I'm like, yeah, he's like perfectly in the middle of this. We're ranking this thing from 1 to 68, and he is.
Where do you have Sherrod Moore?
He is our replacement wins above replacement coach. Our Wark, like is PJ Fleck the Mendoza? Like is he the 0.0 power conference replacement coach? And I say that lovingly again because if you are a power conference head coach, you obviously have some chops. Sort of right there in the middle. Sorry, Bud. Who'd you ask?
Where do you guys have Sherrod Moore?
Not high.
53rd.
58.
54. I mean, he's had
Behind Deshaun Foster, I assume.
I had Deshaun Foster at 51.
Yeah,
I
thought Foster did more with less than Moore did.
Yeah, I had Deshaun at 48.
They got better as the season went on.
I was the high man on Deshaun. Do you guys want to guess which coach had the widest range?
Tell me.
Either somebody who half the group thinks has fallen off, and somebody and some still believe in, or somebody who's got has one really good year.
Is it individual? Like one vote this way,
Yeah.
one vote this way?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There was one voter had this coach at 9, and another had him at 61.
Whoa.
Belichick.
Nope. Kurt Signetti.
61.
Whoa.
Now, I'm not going to out the voter, but based on how their rankings are, they very much value experience.
At the power
In a
conference level.
long term, yes. Based on just where some of the rankings are, I'm looking at it and it's like, all right, this is a person that's like, I want to see more than 1 or 2 years.
You're telling him that
61.
You're telling him
Mhm.
that success at Elon ain't getting it done.
All right.
So
So
this-
that means
this
we
vote.
have. I'm going to read about 15 names here. That means they have Signetti behind half of these. Okay. Stanford's interim. The new guy at Wake Forest.
No, Stanford's interim was dead last.
Yeah, no, he was. I told you, Frank Reich. I mean,
Jeff Levy, Brent Pry, Wilcox, Scott Frost, Pittman, Sherrod Moore, David Braun, Deshaun Foster, Satterfield, Joey McGuire, Hugh Freeze, Venables, Narduzzi, Napier. They have Signetti behind half of those guys, at least, if that's 61.
So here's the deal.
But wait, is it logically consistent? Like, do they have Kleiman way down too, and Leipold way down too?
Kleiman, they have. Where are you at? No, I'm
Kleiman's
scrolling
only
up.
2 years, right?
Kleiman's at 18, but he's been there a while. He's been there 6 years or so.
Oh, yes, there.
Yeah.
But no, there's like the bottom of his list is filled with less experience, like guys who've just been there. Like Fran Brown is only 50 or 60th on their list. So.
All right. So here's the deal. We will, at some point this summer, at least offer an invitation to this person. We will not give them any pretense. We will have a great episode together. And then before they're out of the other half, we'll out them for the tailgate.
Is this a person we were already planning on having on the show?
I've put their name in the private chat. It's a person who I don't know if they'll come on our show for competitive reasons.
Oh, so I thought it was.
Hey, listen, we are going to be keeping the conversation going. We're going to keep the conversation going all week long here on the Cover 3 podcast. Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll actually get into the big old bag of mail. More of your questions, maybe a little bit of reaction to that first set of rankings again, number 68 through 26. So we will do that. And I like to be able to drop this one for Wednesday mailbag. If you could start your fandom from scratch, what kind of program would you root for? Maybe the type, maybe the names. Who would you be attracted to? If you're just starting from scratch, dropped in from out of the sky, what would you be looking for? I will get into all that and so much more. And you can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow him at Tom Fornelli. Follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.